Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who wants to ask out her coworker crush. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not trained in any of this. We are not professionals in any way. So please take our advice as you see fit, as a supplement to your other things that are going on in your life, hopefully from trained professionals. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. Before we dive into today's letter, we've got a check-in topic, and I've actually got a quick announcement. Our online store, our online merchandise is back open. And we're actually running a huge sale right now because we're trying to clean out that closet, before the end of the year.
Yep.
So everything in our store is like at least 50% off. It's crazy. We're talking like $12.50 Just Break Up t-shirts. So we got sweatshirts, we got crop tops, we got notebooks. And I'll throw in some free stickers and things like that if you place an order. So you can check that out at justbreakuppod.com. So yeah, go get your holiday shopping early.
For sure. And when we say we need to clean out the closet, like we literally mean Sierra's closet, just to be clear.
Yeah, it's,
like,
it's like my office closet. It's stored nicely and neatly.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not just like thrown there. But yeah, we're trying to clear out some space in that closet. You know what I mean, girl?
I get it.
Anyway, go to justbreakuppod.com to check out all of our JBU merchandise because we want it to go to you.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
And not be in Sierra's closet.
All right. So announcement is done. Up next, we got a check-in topic before we dive into today's letter. The check-in topic is something I recently learned about that I'm about to just spring on Sam just to get their response.
I can't wait.
Because I'm intrigued by it and I'd never heard of it before, and I'm wondering if you have. I actually came across this method. I was on social media and I'm like mindlessly scrolling, as we do, and I saw a meme or like an infographic that was like how to leave your conservative husband. And it was like giving advice on like how to actually extricate yourself from a relationship in a safe way. Like make sure you have access to money, blah, 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 blah. It's political season. Like, I get it. I appreciated all of the advice on there. And one of them was to attempt the gray rock method when interacting with your partner. Have you ever heard of this? Gray rock method.
No.
Okay. So I Googled it, and the gray rock method is where you deliberately act unresponsive or unengaged with a toxic person in your life so that said abusive person will lose interest in you. Abusive or traditionally narcissistic people thrive on the emotions and our dramas and inciting a reaction in people. And the idea of this method, I don't know who made it up. I don't know if it's tested or proven or whatever. So I'm just bringing it to the JBU table to talk about.
For sure.
When you act indifferent and don't show your emotions, they may lose interest and stop berating you or whatever. And this is called gray rocking. Other things that the internet tells me about it is the goal is to disengage without ending contact, keep interactions brief and limited about what you share in your life. Respond briefly. Avoid eye contact. Stay calm and cool and collected, even if the other person is trying to instigate and yell and pick a fight. Don't answer their questions. Don't ask questions. And the idea behind gray rock method is that abusive people, especially those with narcissistic tendencies, enjoy getting a reaction from their victims. And so if you make yourself and your interactions with them as neutral as possible, there's some sort of psychology behind there that they will lose interest in poking that bear, if that makes sense. What do you think about that?
I think it makes sense. I think that method is probably helpful in places where maybe abuse isn't present, but maybe like toxicity or like narcissism or like emotional immaturity is, and particularly with someone who you can't avoid, like a coworker or like a parent or a roommate or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Where it's just like, I think it's sort of like a blend of like being disengaged and also like a little bit of cheerful and stupid, right? Where you're just like, I'm not reading subtext. I'm just going to answer your question the way that you asked it of me. And I'm not going to follow through. I'm not going to get further into it. I think cheerful and stupid is a little bit more like engaging than this sounds like, but I think it's actually probably really helpful in particular contexts where doing this type of behavior isn't going to lead to an escalation. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you've got a coworker who's like emailing you about something that's like stupid and they're being like stupid about it, when you're just like, right, then this makes sense of just like, okay, sounds good, right? Just, and like, don't escalate, don't engage, just like take a step back. Or like if you have a parent who's like texting you 27 times in a row about the fact that their Wi-Fi is broken or whatever, right? Like, instead of like escalating, instead you're just like, okay, sounds good, we'll fix it. You know what I mean? Like,
is that a specific story, Sam?
It is not a specific story. My mother is wonderful. And so like, I think that makes sense. I think it sounds to me that it could escalate a situation with a person who is stalking, who is verbally, physically, emotionally abusive, who is, threatening, right? Like, in those instances, I think that it would be challenging for me to say that this is a good idea, because I would want something different, which is like a full cutoff of a person who's abusive, a way to keep that person safe that doesn't involve them having any sort of communication with the person who's stalking them, right? Like that's where it gets a little bit crunchy for me. I think that there's probably some good that can come from this particular way of doing things, especially like maybe in the like interim when you're starting to leave somebody, you're trying to break things off and you're trying not to escalate the situation. Like, I think that could be helpful, but I do think that like my guess is that this is hard to do well in a situation that's really heightened, and that it could exacerbate some of the behavior as opposed to like de-escalating it, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree. I think it's probably situation specific. And actually, I liked what you said about like a family member or a coworker, as well as like a loved one. The article that I'm on right now references that that this can be really helpful in those more distanced, relationships, or co-parents or whatever. But the first thing I thought of, I appreciated this method. I like having it in my tool belt, to think about, because it is like an extension of cheerful and stupid. It's, there's cheerful and stupid where you're appeasing, you're friendly, you pretend that you don't notice that they're trying to hurt you. And eventually it's like, they're going to be worn down, where this is a step farther where you're just not going to engage with them on anything, not even the appeasing part. You know what I mean? It's just emotionally neutral all the time. But I also, too, thought about like this instigating some people because they want that rise so much out of their partners. Or I could see this being something that would trigger some sort of physical response from a partner, which obviously we don't want. It is interesting. This article references that it is connected to, well, it hasn't been used much in scientific research. Gray rock tactics, it says, are rooted in behavioral psychology theories, specifically around the concept of extinction when we refer to unwanted behavior patterns. I guess there's some correlation between what causes our behavioral patterns to slow down or to spike or whatever. And granted, the article isn't like about physical abuse, emotional and psychological abuse tactics, narcissistic games, toxic behaviors. Nowhere in here does it say anything about physical abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like a pretty standard de-escalation tactic in my experience, which is like, don't engage, don't match the energy, right? Like, particularly for somebody who may be like heightened. So like that totally makes sense in that like it can be a helpful way to take something that might like where we might like keep going up and up to instead be like, nope, we're just going to keep things. I'm not going to respond to you, right? Like I'm not going to take the bait from you to perpetuate this toxicity.
Yeah, reading on the article says, when they don't get the desired reaction from you, the abuser might want to take different approaches to get you to respond how they want, which is kind of what you and I were leaning towards, this idea of like they're missing their gratification, and so they're going to try a different tactic. And the article says, for example, they might create a crisis to draw support from you, which I can totally imagine easily. They might treat you nicely so that you let your guard down, or they might escalate, meaning their behavior gets worse. And the article says, in some cases, their behavior may get worse before it gets better. This is sometimes called an extinction burst. Often after an escalation stage, their behaviors do improve. I think what's tricky about this method is just, even if they're in need and they're in crisis, or even if they're treating you nicely because they're trying to get that thing from you, again, it's neutral all the way. It's neutral whether they're nice to you. They're neutral whether they're bad to you. Neutral whether they need you or not, I like thinking about it. Obviously, I think you and I have some situationally based critiques or feedbacks or ideas about this, but I thought it would be a cool thing to talk about on the show and to have in the back pocket.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there are probably ways in which that tactic works really well for people. And I think that it should be something that folks think about or try, especially, because like so much of the ways in which these like cycles of toxicity happen is that we get drawn in to the toxicity.
Exactly. To participating.
What I mean? Right. And I think that one of the ways that we discourage that is by doing the block, right? Like cutting off contact so that we're not like back in the place of toxicity. But I think that if you have the like capacity to be able to do this and want to intentionally commit to it, where again, like maybe cutting off contact isn't an option or isn't the thing that you want to do. Like, I think that this is probably a very effective tool in like deflecting somebody's attention or narcissism away from you.
And even if you want to cut off contact, I feel like this is a great stage, you know what I mean? Especially if there's like explosive.
Well, and it's like reminding me of like, you might cut off contact with somebody and you still might run into them somewhere. And this might also be a really helpful tactic when you go to that event and you see them there. You don't
want to be cheerful or stupid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they're trying to draw you in and you're just like, no, like, I'm not going to engage in this. I'm not going to ask further questions. Like, we can see each other. We can say hello. We can like surface level, but we're not going to go any deeper. Like, I think that could also be a helpful tool for folks who are like, I can't cut off contact with this person because like we run in the same circles, or, we're both artists in this community. So we're going to run into each other. What do I do then? Like, I think that this could be a really helpful tool to help think about, if you don't want to be cheerful and stupid, how can you be black rocking? Is that what it's called? Gray rocking.
Gray rocking.
Gray rocking.
Gray rock tactics, something like that.
Cool.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for letting me throw that on you.
Absolutely.
All right, let's dive into today's letter. It's coming to us from Trying My Best A, whose pronouns are she, her, who's writing to us from Atlanta. Hi, how do I bring myself to pursue a work crush that is apparently reciprocating my feelings? I work full-time at a popular grocery store chain and have been at my location for the past year. Around a year ago, in August 2023, R and I, both in our early 20s, were hired and started working within the same week at our store. I thought he was cute when we first met, but never thought about him as I was focused on adjusting to my new job. Within a couple months of working there, him and I became great friends. We'd get food together on our lunch breaks and spend time after work together so we could gossip.
Love that.
Relatable.
Uh-huh.
Around the same time we were hired, I finally had the realization that I identified as a trans woman. I never came out about it at work until about 6 months later. By then, I had started to grow my hair out and had been prescribed estrogen. R was one of the first coworkers I had come out to, and with his encouragement, I made the announcement to the rest of our team, who were overall very accepting of my identity.
I love
Around
that.
April this year, I broke up with the guy T I had been seeing. It was somewhat a situationship, as we had never had a conversation about officially being in a relationship, but we still dated for about 5-ish months. I never talked too much about my personal life at work, so when I mentioned to R that I had recently gone through a breakup, he tried his best to comfort me, as he didn't know I was dating someone to begin with. R and I began to get coffee before we went to work, sometimes multiple times a week. One of our coworkers, S, made a comment that she never sees the two of us apart, and when she thinks of one of us, she thinks of the other. This comment led me to the realization that, oh shit, I think I may have feelings for R. I mentioned these feelings to another coworker named D, who thought R and I would be so cute together since we are already close friends at work. R and I continued hanging out at and outside of work, now becoming slightly complicated by my crush on him. After about a month of this, D told me she's convinced R has a crush on me. She brought up that, from her perspective, it seems like R blushes at everything I say and that he doesn't talk to anyone else the way he talks to me. I had never noticed this, but I obviously liked hearing it. I mentioned to S that I had a crush on R, who then became shocked as she assumed R and I were already in a relationship with how flirty him and I were. After a while of R and I hanging out outside of work and him helping me when I moved out of one apartment to another, D asked him if he likes me as well. He, apparently, as I wasn't there, blushed heavily and said, no, somewhat sarcastically. Since then, he's been noticeably nicer and more flirty with me. He's been carrying my stuff for me and started walking me to my door whenever we hang out.
It's so cute. It's so cute.
My problem is, if he does apparently like me back, is there something wrong with me that I don't see it? I obviously want R to reciprocate this crush, but even with all the evidence I'm presented by everyone else who talks to us, I struggle with believing it. I think it may have to do with the idea of like certainty, and that I just struggle with believing in good news if I'm not actually there to witness it myself. Sometimes I wonder if it has something to do with my identity as a trans woman, and if I'm maybe just insecure over the possibility of him perceiving me as a man still. Whatever the reason is, I just wonder why I can't see his feelings for me and what I should do about it, if anything at all.
If it's not abundantly clear, I love this letter so much.
Well, I love a classic crush. I love a classic
100%.
Work, feelings growing, flirtiness, carrying your stuff, walking to your door. Love it.
Oh, it's so cute. It's so wonderful.
I get butterflies thinking about that stage. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes. That like stage of not quite knowing and the excitement of having a crush on this person. And I just love the little queer trans situation that's happening here of like how adorable and wonderful all of this is. And I'm so glad that you have a wonderful friend in R who seems to be so kind and supportive of you. Absolutely. And great coworkers who love you and want to gossip with you. And, I'm so excited and also nervous about all of this in the same way that you are about what does this mean and what are you going to do? And, this questioning that you're doing around like, everyone's saying that R really likes me. How am I supposed to know? Like, is there something wrong with me that I can't tell? And I don't think that there's anything wrong with you. I think that it can be really hard to tell sometimes when folks like us. And I think that that's probably especially true for folks who are trans, for folks who are queer, for folks who have lived identities that may, impact their sense of the world. And we're going to get into that and affirm the shit out of you and then tell you all about how you need to go on a date with this person when we get back from the break.
All right, my darlings, welcome back, and a special welcome to our darling letter writer, Sam and I are so tickled to answer this letter and to encourage you and to also just like sit in your feelings with you, because I think it's as cute and bubbly and excited as we are about the crush. We also really resonate with this idea of like, you know, not believing in good things, not believing that love out there could be reciprocated to us particularly. And it makes a lot of sense to us, and we would just want to like sit in those feelings with you, talk them out, affirm them with you, and eventually convince you to shoot your shot with this coworker. I think I'll start by saying it's, you know, from what we can perceive and what you can perceive from your side of this relationship and what you've shared with us, it sounds like there's a good chance that those feelings are reciprocated, right? And before we convince you to shoot your shot, I think I want to talk about why we hesitate in moments of this, like on a surface level, because everything has opportunity costs. And you know, once you have this conversation with R, that your relationship is going to be pushed into a new iteration of itself. It could be a new awesome iteration where these feelings are reciprocated and you want to be together in some way, or, you know, whatever way that looks good to both of you. It could be pushed into this new era of like, you both have feelings for each other, but you've decided not to act on it because you work together and you don't want to affect your friendship or whatever. It could be that he doesn't reciprocate these feelings enough, or who knows, and then you have to adjust accordingly, etc. There's a thousand options that could happen. And so on top of just general insecurity or self-doubt or whatever, I think we hesitate in these moments because deep down we know that it won't stay like this forever, like that an act like this will change your friendship. Do I think it's worth risking that change? Yes, because the alternative is it stays like this forever and you never get to vocalize your feelings and you never get to see the potential of this relationship. But I guess want to acknowledge that it's scary at the threshold. You know what I mean? When we're like standing at the precipice of change. And we're like, okay, I'm going to choose to push this relationship into change, even though I really love it the way it is right now.
You acting on this is going to change your relationship regardless, you know, and that's so true. And I also think that you say in your letter, right, I struggle with believing in good news if I'm not actually there to witness it myself. And I want to say, like, deeply relate. And also, I'm curious about a couple things. And one is, what in your sort of personal experience has taught you that good news can't be believed, right? Like, what in your experience has taught you that the other shoe is going to drop and that something bad is going to happen, or that thing that you thought was good is going to be a lie, that it's not actually going to happen, right? And I know from my own experience, right, like I have a really similar point of view on a lot of things, and it's because of my family of origin and the way that I was raised and the ways in which good things were sort of fell apart for me, or I was told that I shouldn't believe in good things because that's selfish or getting my hopes up, right? Or my experience with my dad, who had significant mental health issues that we didn't talk about. And so like things would feel really good, but there would always be this like undercurrent of things about to get bad, right? Like he was going to have some sort of episode or he was going to ruin it in some way. And so like I constantly am on the lookout when I'm like, oh, something's going really well. I'm always girding my loins and being like, something bad's about to happen. Adding on to what I said about kind of like your personal experience around like why it's really hard for you to trust that good things could happen to you, I also just want to name that your identity as a trans woman is probably also contributing to this idea that like good things can't happen to you. Not because good things don't happen to trans women, because they do. We are just offered a lot of stories about how trans women don't get good things, right? That they're not deserving of good things because of their identities, because they are lying about who they are, because of all of the things that are happening, right? And to be clear, right, we know that trans women face a lot of discrimination, a lot of violence. And like that is also really true in this particular moment in time too. And so I wonder if there isn't part of this narrative that you may be experiencing and perhaps buying into, that like trans women, you included in that, don't deserve good things, don't deserve love, don't deserve the love of, somebody who's kind to them, right? Like partially because of the reality that trans women experience around violence and persecution, but also just because like so many of our media stories are about how trans women don't deserve these things, whether because they're tricking other people or because of the violence that they've experienced or the persecution, right? And so it can be really hard to believe like, oh, somebody finds me attractive. Somebody wants to be with me. Somebody is going to be nice and kind to me and not expect anything in return, right? Like I can totally understand how that sort of experience and the sort of narrative around it might be coloring your own expectations of what other people are going to do or be able to offer you because of that identity. And like, I don't want to negate that. And I don't want to say that's not true. And I also want to say that there are people out there who are going to love you for your trans identity, who are going to find you smoking hot, who are going to want to have sex with you if that's something that you want to do with them, right? Who are going to want to carry your things for you and open car doors and go on cute dates and all of the things that you are so deserving of because you are a person who is deeply lovable. And I hope, and I really, really hope, and I think that maybe this is true, that this person, this guy that you have this crush on is somebody who's going to be able to see and hold and love that lovability within you because of who you are and because of the identities that you have. And I believe, I just like, my little heart is just like, I believe so strongly that this person is going to be able to love and respect and hold you and want to do all of those things with you.
Yeah, totally. So if it's not abundantly clear, and let's say that for like the 8th time this episode, Sam and I love you, and we think that you should take that risk. You should step through that threshold of change and see what lives on the other side of you sharing your feelings with this friend. There's nothing wrong with you that you can't, see what other people are pointing out to you. That isn't telling me anything fucked up or unique about you. I think that is a really common human experience, that we deny ourselves the things that other people see so clearly for us, right? Because of our families of origin, because what we've been taught is that we have to earn love differently, or that it's not available to us, or whatever, as we've already said. But we think you just say, hey, can I talk to you about my feelings someday? Or whatever. Be prepared for, again, you're moving through that threshold. You're moving into change. The relationship will change a little, right? Maybe it will change in wonderful ways. Maybe it will just change a little bit in awareness and knowledge. But you deserve to have your feelings heard and reciprocated and validated. And we think you should shoot your shot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And trust your friends when they say that he likes you. It's just like, it's really clear to them. And I think it's really clear to us that that's true. And we think that you deserve to shoot your shot, right? Like you are somebody who deserves the type of love that you are seeking from this person. And we really hope that he's capable of reciprocating it, because you 100% deserve it and you are 100% worthy of it. Yeah.
All right, my darling, we love you so much. And we hope this helps.
Absolutely. We love you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those monthly office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise, heavily discounted.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcasts and his music. And remember, those around us can more easily see the love that we're receiving, the love that we deserve, because they don't have to deal with the internalized messaging that we have, been raised with, have been combating our whole lives. They can see so clearly the love that we deserve, the love that we could receive if we just shared our feelings. I think we can believe them. I think we can believe the people out there telling us that we are worthy and lovable and deserving. They're right. And if all else fails,
just break up.